Hello dear people, welcome to this video special, where we will be talking about the novelties of the RWS TARGET ELITE PLUS series. Included are two new loads, and in my opinion, a very promising projectile, which goes by the name of SCORION. If you take a closer look at the TARGET ELITE Plus, then the first thing you notice is that you promise match precision and hand-loading quality ammunition. Sounds a little bit like too good to be true, coming off of the production line after all. What is it about the new product?
The bottom line is that we don't do things any differently from the reloader. We just take our components, inspect numerous variants, and then select the one that harmonizes best, starting with the ignition via the primer by utilizing the case, which contributes as much to the precision as the bullet itself, and of course the powder selection, which we determine via a loading sequence, so that we also filter out the sweet spot in this area, so to speak, and the setting depth of the projectile, of course.
And in fact, your job is even harder, because you have to find that out in a constellation, which fits into all systems, whereas the hand loader at home would set that to adapt it specifically for their platform. And since last year, we have also been speaking about a new projectile.
Right. The Target Plus is loaded with a Scorpion bullet in my hand. The 338 Lapua Magnum with the 250 grain bullet, which we have also shot on the range. Furthermore, with the 223 with a 69 grain bullet. The bullet itself is really fine-tuned for the needs of the finished cartridge, i.e. the factory loading, as well as for the reloader. The technical details here are really, when one goes deeper into it, just really fascinating.
Die technischen Details sind da wirklich, wenn man tiefer einsteigt, echt faszinierend.
You obviously have success with it because you're bringing two new loads onto the market. One of them is the 338 Lapua. I was given the chance to shoot it yesterday. My shoulder is still complaining. By the way, not so bad actually with a suppressor. Also quite gentle measured by the caliber. Without a suppressor, gunner, thank you very much. Not quite so cool, but you also bring the third load out, now in 223.
Exactly. We start with a 69 grain load, the limit of what is feasible with standard barrel twist, in order to really gain the maximum of precision with normal twisting, especially for the long-range sector. But it depends especially, of course, on the bullet.
Da kommt's aber besonders natürlich aufs Geschoss an.
And regarding the subject of the bullet, I would have to be perseverant here, because since about the middle of last year, or somewhere around that time, you brought out the SCORION bullet. I'll hold it here, once in my hands. Daniel, why don't you explain to me the special features of this bullet?
On the one hand, very selected components which are coordinated with each other. Geometric shapes in an elaborate experimental matrix really tuned to the external ballistic requirements. And, of course, last but not least, the high consistency in our production.
What really interests me personally is you are dealing with a very slim bullet in this case. I know that it's always a problem for you in production processes. You actually have to create it to work within a wide range. This means that you cannot just focus on one single system. And I don't really envy you about your job because you have to make it possible for this bullet to be used in all systems and to work on all weapon platforms. How do I have to imagine this?
We have the CIP as a guideline, in which actually all legal framework conditions for a bullet or a cartridge are clearly specified, and we have to orientate everything within the CIP guideline. Everything which is inside we can play with as we like, and then tune almost everything perfectly on the bullet and adjust it to the cartridge.
What many people may not know now, or maybe many people know, and what I have only learnt recently, is that the subject of the ballistic coefficient is perhaps a factor. Although, that when we, now for example, want to develop the best ballistic coefficient, then that would be like a needle now. Yes? Correct. And the bullet would still not function at all. Please help me to shed some light on this point for your viewers.
The cartridge itself, the precision, starts in the chamber itself. If I had a bullet which was shaped just like a needle, then I have a relatively long transition from the original seating of the cartridge until it dips into the field groove profile. This is what we call the rotationless bullet path. And it also determines the precision. That means that it actually starts immediately after the shot is fired.
Now I imagine that you have to ensure that everything now functions for all platforms, which a user might have at all. Daniel, and because you answer so confidently, I suggest I just put you on the spot here. We'll just see what we take here. We'll take this again, and look here, I just took a handful. Here you go. Very briefly, before you do it, what should come out of this?
12.30 at the best.
12.30? That is the benchmark?
That is the benchmark here. It also says so on the package.
So let's see how it'll go with the bonus negotiation afterwards.
12.30. That was already a good start.
That was a precision landing.
12.30.
Okay.
12.30.
Hey, you, it's no problem. I still have a few here. I'll pass them all on to you now.
12.29.
12.29. Wow. Go to the corner and be ashamed of yourself now. No, for God's sake, all joking aside. Obviously, you do what you do very well. Congratulations for that. Let's stay on the subject of continuity. It is not only about the weight itself. Rather, there are hundreds of parameters for a bullet which, nevertheless, have to be more or less the same again and again. Let's start with the tip. How do you guarantee something like that?
The tip is achieved, for example, by maintaining the closest possible process parameters on the machine and also having very tight tolerances for the tools. We have really pulled out all the stops by, for example, also working on the packaging in order to achieve the best possible result.
Top level is top level. If I do it like this, we are then back to the subject of concentricity.
When we are on the subject of concentricity, we are also always on the subject of unbalanced. The lead core inside plays an extremely major role here. There are projectiles which are undefined on the inside. We prevent that because we press the lead core into a specific shape, which also remains stable during the whole process. So, in that respect, we have hardly any imbalance in the rotation in the shot.
That means even that what we do not see now is also always the same?
Yes.
Let's move on to the butt, where I can see the classic match butt component, whereby even there the geometry is, if we always want to do everything in the same way, still a challenge.
This is also coordinated again via the production tolerance. So every feature on this bullet is defined to within the narrowest tolerances and is adhered to via our production process.
Something which is always built in the same way, something which always follows the same rules, which always flies at the same speed in the best case?
Always the same speed and always in the same spot. And also always from one cartridge batch to the next cartridge batch. Consistency really is the key to success when it comes to maximum precision.
Let's talk about the 338 Lapua, where the bullet weights are a little bit different now. Gunnar, you pick us up. How does it look there?
Yesterday we massaged your shoulder with a Scorpion in the 338 Lapua Magnum with a 250 grain bullet.
Yes, that's coming. The bill from the orthopedist is still on its way.
250 grain in the 338 is a very well-balanced loading, although we are not at the upper limit here yet. There are also bullets which exceed beyond 300 grain, but they do not fly equally well from all weapons. The 250 grain has enabled us to tickle out the last bit for the highest inherent precision.
I'm going to take the big boy here, just because they are so much fun. I mean, take a look at this big boy. It's got fun written all over it. Is this the first 338 Lapua you've used on the Target Elite Plus so far?
No, we already have the 300 grain loading available. There are also bullet weights in the 338 series which go even higher than that. We have now balanced the Scorpion at 250 grain in this case, because we have noticed that the 250 grain loading is the most reliable, from different weapons and different barrels, and provides very good precision.
That means it is not the first 338 Lapua, but it is the first 338 Lapua with the Scorion bullet?
Correct.
Well, and I will put it down again, where else? Here next to each other. We talked initially about this subject at the beginning, that for you, especially as a product developer, it is a difficult task to make a bullet to suit all systems. Now, there are people who don't really have this problem. They are actually more concerned with the fact to adapt this bullet to their platform in the best possible way. I'm talking about the reloaders, of course, and that is why the Scorion bullet also exists as a separate component, right?
That is correct.
For example, what is one factor where the I say now to the manufacturer from you differs from what perhaps the hand loader would do at home?
That is actually the CIP on a grand scale. We have to design ourselves so that cartridges, the factory-made loaded cartridges which we sell, for every weapon system in this caliber range can be used on every platform, is what I would say. The reloader, of course, does not have the problem, who can load them as it is suitable for their own individual weapon.
For example, what would they do differently from what you do?
The reloader is, for example, able to set the cartridge length to exceed the CIP. One can say that they reduce the rotation freeze bullet path in the cartridge chamber for themselves. That's what we have. For example, we must not specify beyond the L6 measure because we have to guarantee that our cartridges function in any weapon. In this case, example, also in semi-automatics.
Now, do you have the perfect setup? I think that the Scorion bullet has only been available since the middle of last year. What was the origin, the initiator? Why did you develop this in the first place?
The long-range shooting topic, but also the subject of reloading as such, is becoming more and more widespread. And these are some people who really take this very seriously. And that's why we have used the Scorpion bullet to get the absolute maximum out of a bullet.
Different customers, I can imagine. Gunner says they take it very precisely. I think they really do take it very exactly. For example, now also with the third loading in the 223, do you get feedback in the community? Are there people who write you letters and say, I would like to definitely have something, I need this bullet weight because you don't have it yet, and then you start loading and start experimenting again? What is the approach method?
We always receive feedback from the market, of course, which is also recorded by the product management. And then it's off to coordinate this feedback with the development department, because not every wish can be fulfilled. One can, of course, wish for an 8-gram bullet, which suits a 223, but that no longer flies straight, but would have a super BC.
That is the reason why we are now talking about the 4.5 gram, because that, just from the standard twist, still delivers a good performance. Everything which exceeds that is then really something for short twisting.
That was then like a realizable customer request?
Exactly. That is in principle the bullet weight.
Dear folks, that was them, the novelties of the RWS Target Elite Plus series, now in 2 new loading ranges. Initially, the 223 and 69 grain, the sweet spot, and in 338 Lapua, both for the first time ever with the new Scorion bullet that is characterized by a very high BC and by the fact that Daniel, in his department, always ensures that it really performs equally well from all available platforms. For the people who want to have everything extra precise, it is now also available as a single component for the reloaders, who, for example, have to initially experiment with seating depths in order to adjust the whole thing even more individually. Gunner, Daniel, thank you very much for your time behind the scenes anyway. Don't forget to do what you do on YouTube. Subscribe to this channel and press the bell. Until then, you're Moritz.